What's going on, poker fam? Welcome to part 2 of the downswing. If you haven't seen part 1, make sure you go back and watch that, like, comment, and subscribe on that one. I appreciate everyone's support throughout the first part of the downswing, but I'm gonna need it even more so for part 2 because it's way more money, way worse beats, and it hurts that much more. So anyways, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe on this video. Also share it to a friend. If they're going through a downswing, link them to this video. But without further ado, we're going to get right to the bloodbath. Let's get right to it.
So the first hand we get dealt to start this session is Pocket Jacks. A lot of people hate it, but I don't mind them at all. So I raised it up to $15 under the gun, and the cutoff and the button decide to call. So we're off to a flop, which is Ace Deuce 5 with 2 hearts. So with only one overcard and a flush draw on board, I do decide to put out a bet. And the bet size that I choose is 20, and the cutoff folds, and then the button jams for like 140. And so obviously, is there a slim chance that maybe he has a flush draw? Yes, but more than likely he has a set, or even just an ace is good in this situation. So with nothing really to think about, I relinquish my hand, and that's not the funnest way to start off, but hey, it is what it is. We got a long session ahead of us. So moving on up the rank of pocket pairs, we have pocket aces. What a great sight to see. We're in the +1 and we raise it up to $15 pre-flop, and we end up getting 3 callers. So we're off to a flop, which is amazing. It is 999, so we flop a full house. Being so multi-way, it's not impossible for somebody to have quads, but I'm just going to lose all my money if that's the case. So I decided to start out with a pretty small bet of $25, and that gets me heads up with the cutoff, and we're off to a turn, which is a deuce. Now, when he calls the flop, I'm thinking he could have any array of overcards, king, queen, jack, jack 10, anything like that. So if he's floating with those hands, he's not going to call any bet. So I think that I make a small mistake by betting $50. Obviously, it's not that bad because I do have a full house, and that's going to price in any of the smaller pocket pairs who don't think that I have a larger one, such as pocket sixes, pocket sevens, pocket eights. They're going to call. So with all that being said, I think that I should have just tweaked my sizing just a little bit more. Let's say maybe $70. And only reason why that makes a difference is because when we get to the river, which is a 6, I have $115 left. So obviously I'm going to go all in, and that's what I do. I ship it all in, and he's tanking for quite a while, and then he ultimately decides to fold. Now he was kind enough to show me that he had pocket sevens, and for that I let him know that I have pocket aces. Now the reason why I was saying that my turn bet could have been sized up just a little bit more, if he's going to call $50 with his pocket pairs that don't believe me, I'm pretty sure he would call, let's say, 65 and maybe even $70. And with that being said, the river bet wouldn't be 115, it would maybe be $95. And I know that seems pretty subtle, but he'll have more money already committed into the pot. So my all-in amount won't really be as scary of a bet, because although it's $115, it is me going all in, and sometimes at 1-3 it's about the absolute bet sizing, not about the pot odds. Because yes, he's still getting 4-1 as is. He has to call 115 for a pot that's going to be 460, but I don't feel like a lot of 1-3 players are thinking about it like that. So I think just a small change of sizing would be better on the turn, and that's why. But anyways, you let me know what you think about this hand, and we are on to the next one. So in this hand, I'm going to share with you a little trick that I've learned along the way. So we have pocket aces in the small blind. It folds around to the button who decides to raise it up for $11. Now, normally this would be a raise to about $45, $50 out of position, but I know that the big blind has been trying to just jam his short stack all in. So I make a min raise to $25, knowing that he only has about $50 left. So more than likely, if he has a hand that he likes, he's going to go all in. The reason why this is a trick is because when it gets to the button, if he decides to call with his hand, then I can re-raise if I choose. Or if he thinks that he wants protection with whatever he has and he re-raises, now he fell perfectly into the trap. Obviously, in this particular case, it didn't work out. He folds, and we're heads up to the flop, turn, and river, which we hold with our aces and win. But this is just a trick that works if you're aware of stack depth and if you're aware of opponents that are just trying to jam all in when they are short. So this is not really a trick that you're going to get to use very often because we don't get pocket aces very often. But in certain circumstances, you gotta just look around at the table and see if things like this are applicable and use them to your advantage. Let me know what you think about this trick and if you've ever done anything like that.
All right, so here's the bloodbath hand. In this first part of the session, it wasn't that long. I was playing only a few hours, so I'm about to rack up my chips and leave up out of here with about $100 of profit, and I get 3-4 of spades. So that's a very pretty hand, and it's an under the gun raise to $10, and two people call in front to me. So I just say, hey, let me just call and see what happens on the flop. I could be putting a squeeze here, but I don't, and so we end up going 6 ways to a flop, which is 6, 3, 4, 2 clubs, 1 spade. So we have bottom 2 pair, and on this flop, the original raiser decides to check. Next stack now decides to put out a bet of $40. So when it folds to me, I'm thinking about it for a moment, and being that there's 2 clubs out there, he could have a flush draw or something like that. And I just think that as of right now, I have the best hand. So instead of just calling, I decide to rip my whole stack all in for around $375 total. So it folds all the way around to the player who bets, and he's like saying, do you have a set? Do you have a set? So that's not the best thing to hear. He might have 2 pair, and obviously if he has 2 pair, he's going to have me beat. And as he's thinking about it for quite a while, he finally does decide to put in the call. So we are going heads up to the river. The turn is the 8 of spades, giving us 2 pair and a flush draw. And then the river is an offsuit 5. So now any 7 makes a straight. And he looks very hesitant to show his hand. So of course I do show. I tell him I have 2 pair. And then he says, oh, better 2 pair. And he shows that he has 5, 6. So obviously, that kind of sucked that he got there with that 5, and he didn't have the 5 of spade, nor was the 5 of spade on the board. So he didn't even have all clean outs to hitting his 2 pairs. But it is what it is. We were about 50-50 on the flop. It just sucks. Like, I'm on a downswing, and I'm this close to walking away with a profit. That's just going to help, like, my just my confidence a little bit. I don't care who you are and how good you are. You lose a bunch of consecutive sessions, is definitely going to affect you. And I'm just about to walk out of here with a profit, and I lose my whole stack. So I go from about to win 100 to losing $300. And obviously it's not that much money I'm bankrolled for the game, of course, especially for 1-3. But it just really sucked to walk out with nothing. But the bloodbath is not over. We're going to go to another session, and let's see how this one works out for us.
So this hand is from a different session, but the same day. So yeah, it's like a true DJ. I came back to the casino later on this night and decided to try to get my money back. So we have Ace Jack under the gun, and we've raised it up to 15. Next stack decides to call along with the cutoff. So we're going 3 ways to a flop, which is King 9-5 with 2 clubs. So we have a backdoor flush draw, overcard, and some backdoor straight draws. So that's good enough for me to bet, and I bet out for $20, and they both call. Now, when they both call, I'm putting somebody probably on top pair. Maybe somebody else has a flush draw or maybe a gut shot. Let's say they had a hand like Jack 10 that might want to call one time to see if they can spike a queen. But anyways, we are off to a 5 of clubs on the turn, giving us now the official nut flush draw. It does pair the board. However, the only full houses I'm thinking somebody could have would be pocket 5s. Although every once in a while people are not going to 3-bet pocket 9s and 1-3. So with that being said, I feel good enough to bet with the ace of clubs as a bluff. I had to put out a bet of $60. Although it's not that much money in relativity to the pot, it is a pretty big bet just in general. So only the cutoff decides to call. So now we're going heads up, and I'm just praying for a good card, and it is beautiful. It is the 2 of clubs. So now I go from about to go all in as a bluff to going all in as value. And when she calls the flop and the turn, I don't think she has a flush. I'm thinking she's probably more weighted to having a top pair hand such as King Queen, King Jack, a hand of the sort. So with that being said, I put her in a really tough spot when I go all in. She thinks about it for about 2 minutes or so. I'm going to spare you all of that, but she does end up deciding to fold, unfortunately. And I do show her a red jack just to kind of keep her guessing or whatever. But of course, we did have it. Wish I would have got called there, but still took down a pretty decent pot. And to go runner flush, you can't beat that. So let's move on to the next hand. This session is actually starting pretty well. Nines, my buddy Ash's favorite hand. There's an underling raise to $15, and I decide to call from the +2. The small blind and the big blind decide to come along, so we're going 4 ways to the flop, which is Queen 9-4 with 2 clubs. So we do hit middle set. When undergun player checks to me, I'm going to take the betting league, and I decide to bet out for $40, which is about 65% of the pot. I'm not going to go for 1/3 or 1/2 sizing because it's such a wet and dynamic board with Queen 9. Anybody can have a flush draw, Jack 10, King 10, a Queen, and a flush draw. There's so many different hands to get value from that I decide that going up a little bit higher would be the better option to extract the most value. And with that being said, only the small blind decides to call. The turn is a 6 of spades, and now I actually size down percentage-wise. I bet out for $70. So before I was betting 40 into a pot of 60, which like I said was 65%, but now I am betting $70 into a pot that's going to have $140. So now I'm only betting half of the pot at this point in time, and I'm giving him a better price to hit his flush. However, with only 1 card to come, and not all of his flush outs are clean, he's actually not getting as good of a price as he thinks he is. But all of this is a moot point because he just decides to fold. And obviously he does tell me that he did have a flush draw, but it was a weaker one. He said that if he had the ace high flush draw, he would have called, obviously because he's drawing to the nuts. And plus, he might think that his ace is good. In this case, it wouldn't be. But I do agree that that was the right way that he played it. And I think I played it pretty well. If you have another way on how I should have played this hand, let me know in the comments. But this session is over now, but trust me, in the next sequence of hands is when the bloodbath really begins.
So, bloodbath hand number 2. So let me just set the scene for you. I was playing 2-5. I didn't want to vlog. I just wanted to focus on my game, and I ran it up to about $1,100 from a 500 stack. So I'm up $600, and I lost a couple hands, and I'm ready to leave. Not because I lost a hand, but it was already my time to go. So once again, I'm almost in the rack. I get dealt ace king. There's a shuttle on. I raised it up to $40, and it folds around to an aggressive reg named Yoda. He raises this up to $220, which he could be doing with anything since he's in position and he's aggressive, like I said. So with that being said, I'm wrestling with the fact of, okay, should I just fold and book like a $450 win at this point? Or should I do what I know I'm supposed to do as a poker player? And I'm wrestling with the two things, and I decide to go all in with ace king, and he snap calls. So that's pretty alarming, but he does say that he thinks that he induced it. So if that's the case, then maybe he thinks that I know that he raises light and that my shove is not as strong as it actually is. So he could have any array of hands. And so we're all to a flop, which is 7-3-2, nothing. Turn is a jack, and the river is a 4. So nothing for me. All I'm sitting here was ace king high, and he shows that he snapped me off with ace jack. So that's very unfortunate. I went from up $500, I bought to leave, to losing all my profit and what I bought in for. So I turned a $500 profit to a $500 loss. That's a $1,000 swing. And when you're in a downswing, this is just absolutely devastating. And I walked out of there so mad at myself because I was really supposed to leave 15 minutes prior. I'm on a downswing. Sometimes booking the win is more important than playing like the long game of everything's going to turn around over time. Sometimes you just need to have a day of winning to just walk away feeling good about yourself. And I don't care how good of a player you are, you keep on losing, it will affect you. So very mad at myself about this, but the bloodbath is not over. We're going back to the felt, and I have a couple more hands to show you where it gets even worse, if you can believe that.
So in this next session, we start off with pocket kings. What a great way to start off the hand. There's a straddle on for $6. 4 people call the straddle, and so I decide to bump up the hand to $40. That does seem like a lot, but when 4 people call $6, I want to price everybody out and either go heads up or just take it down. And we get our wish, and only the straddler decides to call and defend. We are off to a flop, which is ace 9-9. Obviously, that's not what you want to see when you have pocket kings. Ace high's board sucks. But nonetheless, it's not always that he's going to have an ace. So I decide to bet out for $40, and then he decides to raise to $95. Now, at this point, I'm thinking, why would he raise with an ace when he could just let me keep on betting and he would get all the money anyway if he has an ace? And if he has a nine, he definitely doesn't want to raise because what is the point? You're going to win more than likely, so why raise here? There's no flush draw, no nothing. So, with all that being said, though, with the sizing, I bet 40. He raised to 95. It's almost a min click. So, normally in 1-3, this is just always an ace. But this guy seems like he might bust a move. But I just go with my usual tells in 1-3 to just fold in this situation. And when I fold, he proudly shows 8-7 of diamonds for just an air ball. He had some backdoor straight draws, but that's about it. And I unfortunately fold. So we start off this hand down and on tilt. But hey, we got to keep battling back and let's see what happens in the next hand. So moving right along, we have a beautiful hand to get our money back. 6-2 of clubs. There's an under the gun raise to $15, and I decided to call from the cutoff. The big blind and the small blind decide to come along as well. So we're all four ways to a flop, which is ace, queen, seven with two diamonds and one spade. So I do have some backdoor stuff going on. Not really, just backdoor straight draw. And once again, not really. So when the under the gun player decides to bet out for $20 with all this imaginary backdoor stuff that I have going on, I decide to call. Depending on the turn, I will decide to bluff. And trying to call and bluff off 3 or 4 other people is definitely suicide, but that's what I'm already got in my mind to do. So we are off to a turn, which is the 8 of diamonds. Mind you, we are 3 ways because the big blind calls and the small blind folds. So now it checks to me, and on this card, I'm going to start my bluff because if somebody had it flush, they would be betting here. Besides the big blind, he could have the flush. But the under the gun player is telegraphing his hand saying that he does not have a flush, maybe an ace at best. So I decided to bet up for $50, and the big blind player decides to call. Under the gun player fold, and now we are off to a river, which is a 3. And on this card, I didn't get this far with 6 high to do anything else besides rip it all in. And I go all in, and our opponent snap folds. I have no clue what he has. At this point, I was going for the kamikaze bluff. Either it was going to get through or I was punting off my stack. So luckily, sometimes just pure aggression can work if players don't have that strong of a hand. I was just lucky that they didn't. Definitely don't recommend this. I think that last hand just kind of got me on tilt. But now I'm back to playing the way that I should play. I just needed to get that out of my system. We've all been there. So let's move on and see how we can continue to build up our stack.
So I just want to say thanks to all the people that have messaged me and we have met up at MGM and I've had a session together. I appreciate people for wanting to play with me and pick my brain about things. If you ever want to play at MGM Maryland Live, just let me know and we'll try to synchronize it. And also thank you to people who have instead decided to play with me on the app. If you want to get involved in that, just let me know. It's tons of action, tons of crazy people going all in with 5 high. Trust me, it's a game you don't want to miss. Just go into the description. You will have my phone number and my Telegram link there. You can hit me up at either one of those two and I will get you into the game. So anyways, back to the action. More of this downswing that has been so terrible coming up now.
So moving on along, we have a semi-premium, 40% of a royal flush, queen jack of clubs in middle position. I've raised this up to $15 and next act decides to call. He is an older gentleman, but not an OMC, but he is rather tight, but not quite OMC. If you get what I'm saying, you get what I'm saying. Anyways, we are off to a flop, which is 10-7-7 rainbow. And so I decide to put out a bet of $15 and he decides to call. Now when he calls, he could just have a 10 and maybe I'll be able to get him off of it by the river. So we're off to a turn, which is a 3. Now, I'm going to keep on barreling to set up a huge monster bet on the river to get him to fold. And he decides to call the 40. I wanted him to fold, but like I said, I knew that this might take 3 streets. So the river is a 10. So now if he has a 10, there's no way he's folding. If he has a 7, it's going to be hard to get him to fold. And so now I just check and give up and he bets out for $40. I'm sorry, $50. Wow, 2 green chips. And I think about it for a minute. I'm just Hollywood and I know for a fact that ripping all in would be suicide. but I'm just Hollywooding before I fold. And when I fold, he actually turns over a high hand. He had flopped quad 7, so the likelihood of me getting him to fold is probably none to none. So obviously, I'm just glad that that river card saved me from putting in that triple barrel. So sometimes running good happens in more ways than just hitting big hands. There's also cards come that helps you get away from it. So once again, we need to build the stack back up a little bit since we did lose a little bit of money. But it's all right. The table's pretty decent, so I think we can do it. Let's see what happens. Again, we're here with 40% of a royal flush. King 10 suited on the button. There's a hijack raise to $15. And I know in 1-3 a lot of times you just want to put a call in here, but it's a pretty hand where I can 3-bet this up. So I'll raise it up to $45 since I am in position, and only he decides to call. So heads up to a flop of Jack 4 deuce. Now, seeing as that I am the 3-better, I can have all of the strong hands, aces, king, queens, jacks, ace, jack, any of the sort of hands. So I decided to put out a bet of $40. And he decides to call. It doesn't take him too long. So maybe he does have a jack. The turn is a queen. So now I'm just hoping he doesn't have queen jack, because that would suck. But we now have an open-ended straight and flush draw. So any 9, any ace, or any spade will more than likely give us the winning hand. So with that being said, I think about how much money I have and how much is in the pot. We put in $90 on the flop, and then we put in $80 on the flop. So that's $170 that's already in there. I'm looking at my stack. I only have about 150 or so. So I think that I want to put max pressure. I would rather have a fold here, but if he does call, I do have a lot of outs. So I go all in. He thinks about it for quite a while, and he does decide to put in the fold. So that's pretty good news, seeing as that I only have king high. But I was happy with any decision. If he called, I was happy to flip for the rest of my stack with such a monster draw. And if he folds, hey, I just win it just like that. So now, with that being said, we are back to close to even stack, and we are going to go to the last hand of this session, where hopefully we can get a lot more money back. But because of the title of this video, I'm pretty sure you know that's not what happens. But let's just take a look anyways. So we now have pocket jacks on the button. Let's go. I know a lot of people don't like pocket jacks in the poker community, but I love them. So that being said, there's a few limps ahead of me, and I raised it up to $25. If I was in middle position, there was a few upfront limps, I would probably raise to 30. That being because people love to call with offsuit and suited Broadway cards, and this hand is vulnerable to those. So I would raise a little bit more. If somebody wants to have position on me, you gotta pay the max. So that being said, I raised $25, and the under the gun limp and cutoff decide to call. So going through ways to a flop is pretty good. It comes 10-9-5 with 2 hearts and 1 diamond. Obviously, this is a very wet and connected board, but the first thing that you're hoping for, besides hitting a set, is to have an overpair, and we do have that. And I think the first inflection point where I messed up at was my bet sizing on the flop. I bet up for only $35. And even though that's close to half pot, I think with a board this wet and connected, I should be going close to pot, because if people have top pair and backdoor hearts or straight draws, they're definitely going to call one time. And with so many chasers, 2 people is a lot here. I want to be charging the max here. So when I bet off for $35, it does get the under the gun limper to fold, but the cutoff does decide to call. We're off to a turn, which is the 9 of diamond. So it does bring in the backdoor flush draw. And now I do like this card because it definitely cuts down on the 10-9 suited combinations. And it also makes it so where if he did somehow limp call with pocket 9s, that would be quads, which is almost impossible. I mean, who hits quads, right? So that being said, I think I make a little bit smaller of a bet, thinking that my hand is definitely good here. And I think that at this point, unless somebody has the ace high flush draw, I don't think they'll be chasing a smaller flush draw here, because they could just be drawing dead at this point, because I could have a full house being the raiser. But our opponent decides to put in the call, and we're off to a river, which is the 6 of diamonds. So the backdoor flush draw does get there. 7-8 suited does get there. So if he has 7-8 of hearts, then yes, he is home. But now at this point, when he checks, I know for a fact he doesn't have the flush, because most players, when they hit a backdoor flush draw, they love to lead out because they don't want it to go check, check. So now I'm thinking I have the green light to go ahead and put in this bet. And once upon a time, I would often go check, check in these spots, because I would just happy to get the showdown, but trying to elevate my game, I'm trying to go for thin value here. So I put out a small bet of $75, just trying to get called by King 10 type of hand, anything of the sort. And he does a snap call, which is great. And after a little while, I'm just praying that he calls. But unfortunately, he decides to put me all in. And obviously, I wanted to throw up and I wanted to just snap fold because in 1-3 low stake, this is like seldomly a bluff. And you got to think about his line. He went check call, check jam all in. I mean, come on now. In 1-3, that's just always a hand that's going to have my hand beat. So, of course, I want to fold with all that being said. But when you think about the price, I'm getting like the most incredible price ever. I have to put in $125 to win a pot of a total of $675. So, all that being said, I need to be right less than 20% of the time in order to be making a profitable call. So with an overpair, you got to decide, am I right 1 out of 5 times? And you would think you would be in a lot of other games and in some 2-5 games or some tougher 5-10 games. Then yes, this is going to be a call all the time because you will be right 1 out of 5 times for sure. But in low stakes, man, this is just not going to be a bluff. I know I keep saying it, but that's just what it is. But after I keep on deciding, the price is just too good for me. Even though I know I'm beat, I stick in the call, and we all know that I'm beat. He has King 9 for turn trips. So I'm really mad at myself for making that call. And I didn't say this in the beginning, but I was definitely deciding that I was going to leave. And then I got pocket jacks. And once again, right before I'm about to leave, I end up getting stacked. So I was only up about $50 to start this hand, but now I'm down my $300. So like I keep telling you about this downswing, it's just so brutal when you keep on having losing sessions. But there is one more ultimate death hand that happens. This is the worst hand of the whole downswing. So if you love pain, be ready for this next hand.
If you are ready for the ultimate in the bloodbath hands, here we go. We have pocket aces and we are playing in a $5, $10, $25 game. It is a 5-10 game, but it's an automatic straddle, so it is what it is. I am first to act with pocket aces. All I do is limp in the little $25, knowing that somebody is going to be aggressive and raise it up. So we do get a hijack raise to $125. So that's a pretty big raise. Normally people are only raising to $75, but because of my limp, he's probably making it more, which I don't care about. That's fine. And I'm even happier when a player behind him decides to call the 125. So I don't even think about sizing. I rip my whole stack all in. I probably have about 2,000, but the hijack is the effective stack in this hand at 1,300. So he actually, even with somebody behind, pretty much calls snap. So I don't care what he does. I have pocket aces. I hope they both snap call, right? You know? So anyways, we decide on how many times we want to run it. And just because I've been running so bad and want to reduce variance, I decide to run it twice. And he shows that he has pocket 10s and I have aces. So we have him completely crushed and we run it twice. So the flop is 7-3 deuce. The turn is a king and the river is a 10. Oh my God. So I'm already so tilted that I'm going to be chopping this pot. And I'm just like, wow, I just can't catch a break. I'm running so bad. And the next flop, he flops a set of 10s. And I do not turn or river a set of aces. So that's right. He finds 2 sets on 2 different runouts, running it twice, and we lose both of them. So in that hand, we lose over $1,300 just like that. And obviously, when you're on a downswing, the way I'm on a downswing, these losses are piling up. So this sucks so bad. I don't even know what to do at this point. I left because I'm just so mad at running so bad. And it really just feels like nothing in poker is going my way. I feel like maybe all of the time that I've been winning for these last couple years has been luck. And maybe I really do suck. You know, it's just a wicked downswing. And the downswing is just so much worse because there's like almost no wins in between. I think I said it before, but I lost 9 out of 10 sessions. And the one session that I won was a session that I actually showed you where I won like $150. So that's nothing.
So basically in this downswing altogether, I am down about $5,000. And believe it or not, I know people say they've been on way worse downswings, but for me, this is the worst downswing that I've ever been on. And I've never lost 9 out of 10 sessions as well. So this really affected me for a while. I did take a few days off playing poker after this. So I just want to say, if you got to this point and you feel my pain, I appreciate you for watching. All of the kind words for people that know I was going through this downswing and help bring me back up. So we're going to keep on fighting. I'm not done making videos. I'm not done playing poker. You will see me very soon, and I am going to tell you that the next video will hopefully start the start of the upswing. So this is Max Bet. I appreciate everybody watching, and until the next video, holla.